Facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park. Programs are produced independently by members of the community. The City of Highland Park is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of the City of Highland Park.
Welcome to Chill Out. I'm Pam Chill. I'm one of the Highland Park senior producers, and today's program is about intimacy. I have very fortunate to have as my guest today Erwin Aloff. Welcome, and who wrote the book, A Guidebook to Light Your Path to Intimacy. It's very, very good reading. The book is condensed to 36 pages. And I use it as a reference guide myself. Since you were fortunate to give me this book, I refer to it on many different occasions. Again, welcome to the program. So what inspired you to write the guidebook to intimacy?
So I'm getting older.
No, you're not.
No, I am getting older. That's the only place for me to go is I'm getting older. And I figured it was legacy time. Mm-hmm. I'd always considered about writing 2 books. I said, I'm going to write a book, And then finally I decided, I was reading a book called The Second Half of Life. And in the second half of life, they talked about creativity and leaving a legacy. So I've left a legacy in many kinds of ways. But I wanted to write a book, and so I decided to write something that I was capable of doing, which is write principles, which is a part of a workshop that I do for couples. So it's a bunch of principles that make a relationship work. And that's what I used as the formula for the book.
I found it extremely beneficial in my own life. I mean, we'll start with a few of the principles. So
first of all, being responsible. Mm-hmm. Being responsible, having integrity, being generous, having gratitude, having trust is a very important part of anything. And in trust, there has to be sharing, a sense of integrity, being thoughtful, like giving you a card when you didn't expect to get a card. Mm-hmm. When I do in the morning, when I have my banana with my cereal, Dolores does not like to have the smell of banana around, so I peel off the thing and I put the banana peel in a little package, and I put it in the garbage. It's my way of saying to her, I love her, and I don't want you to have a problem with it. So things like that, and time, how we spend our time together and how we spend our time apart. So I think it's really important for a couple to not just be intertwined, like I got to do everything you do and you have to do everything I've got to do. Mm-hmm. So Dolores has her life, I have my life, and that makes it wonderful when we share every evening, and we do that almost every evening. We share our lives together. So I have something of interest to share. She has things of interest to share. And obviously we do things together, a lot of things together to make our life, so it's not boring. So it's an exciting, meaningful life. Mm-hmm. So,
do you think a lot of people, as they get retired, they become too dependent on the other spouse?
I think people, before they get retired, mm-hmm. get too dependent on the other spouse. I think it's very important for me to have my own life and to have a meaningful life, and for Dolores to do that with her creativity as an artist, as a color artist. Mm-hmm. And so that, just like with responsibility, I ask couples in the workshop, so who's responsible for your life? I am. Well, how much responsibility? 100%. So who's responsible for what goes on in the relationship? Well, I'm 50% responsible. Mm-hmm. Well, you just lost 50% of your responsibility. That's not too good. So I have them realize that they're both responsible for what goes on in their lives, and the conflicts and the positive things that happen. I'm responsible, she's responsible. So it's not a blame game, it's not a shame game, it's not a critical game. It's like, how do we support each other in our own lives and in our lives together?
I know, but the blame, the shame, and then you mentioned connect and disconnect.
Right.
I found those fascinating. I mean, it's something that when you're in a relationship, it's just so hard because people are in the midst of a confrontational argument, whatever it is, and then one is blaming the other. And what should one party do? I mean, how do you rectify that?
Well,
is that mediated between the two of you without having a third party there?
So I hear what you're asking me is, how the hell do we get through all this nonsense? How do we get through the eggshells so we can get back to firm ground and be together again? So the main thing, I think, is listening to the other partner and seeing what the hurt is. So if there's a conflict, what is the real conflict, the heart of the conflict, not the above thing, you did this, you did that, but what do you really need? What's really important for you and for me and for Dolores to listen to each other and to listen to what the basic things are. And if we can change it, we can change it. John Gottman, one of my mentors, who wrote the book, The 7 Principles of Making a Marriage Work, talks about repair attempts. So I will go, something like this, or something like that. And it means that even though we're having an argument, the argument is about an issue. It's not an argument about our breaking up or our not being together. So there isn't fear or anxiety. It's something that we're working to solve together. So I'm not trying to get you, and I'm not trying to make myself right. There was a writer many years ago who talked about how we're a bunch of masturbators. We got to be right. You got to do it my way, and if you don't do it my way, then you got to be wrong, right? So that doesn't work. It's like, how can we compromise? One of the little tricks we do is it's called 1 to 10. You read that in the book. Is that she wanted to go to Indiana, to Kentucky, to Kentucky to visit her granddaughter. And I wasn't particularly interested in doing that. So, Dolores, how important was that for you to go?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
And she said 10. Well, 2 minutes later, I was on the computer and I had a hotel for Louisville. So it's not mind reading. It gives us a way of determining whether or not how important it is for her, how important it is for me, and so then we have some basis to talk about, something to share.
Right. I thought that was so relevant to a lot of relationships. I mean, it was almost like putting the importance of an issue like on a pain scale. You know, it's like, it's so important, let's make this work.
Right.
However way we get there, we're going to get there.
Right.
Right. You also, and I want to touch on it again, is that you had mentioned, like, when people say, I want that partner to be more like me. And that isn't, you know, people may think that they want it. One party may think that they want it in the relationship, but you really don't want somebody like you.
Well, I don't
having
want
the same attributes, right?
Right. I don't want you to be like me just to be like me. I think I put in the book about when I was waiting in the car for Dolores, we have a little ritual about I like to be on time because of being accountable, and she's usually a little later than I am. We always get where we're supposed to be on time, but I always get nervous about it because it's important to me. But I think it's essential to be able to accept the partner for what they're at and to set boundaries. So this is what you want to do, this is what I want to do, and working that out and knowing that I have a life and you have a life and we have a life together. It's important to have all three of those, not just one of those. So I'm not dependent upon you, I'm not codependent upon you. My happiness doesn't depend on you. Your happiness doesn't depend on me. So we support each other, but I have to take care of myself and do what's important to me. You need to do that, what's important and creative to you. Dolores needs to to do that, and she does that, and I totally support her in doing that. So both our lives have to be meaningful lives, and then we have something to share rather than something to fight about. It was just interesting. Just the other day, I was feeling negative. I wasn't feeling good about it. I hadn't been sleeping really well. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to criticize Dolores for something she was doing. That's one of the joys of having a partner. We have someone to criticize. One of the side effects of having that, one of the benefits of having a partner. We don't have to look at ourselves then. I can look at you and blame you for what's going wrong with me.
Internally within you.
Right. I can blame you for what's going on with me. So I really consciously said to myself, don't do that. Don't blame her or criticize her because I'm feeling bad. She was doing the same thing she always does, but because I was in a different space, in a negative space, I wanted to criticize her because I really was criticizing myself.
Now,
so taking responsibility for that.
Absolutely. Now, do you think, looking back on that, do you think she should have asked you and said, Erwin, what's really going on?
Well, she knew what was going on because
okay.
we share.
Oh, okay.
We share. So one of the essentials of a relationship is having a friendship. Okay.
Because some people don't want to talk about if they had a negative day or something that
So if we don't
transpired.
talk about it, we're not sharing what's going on in our lives. And if we're not sharing what's going on in our lives, going back to what you said, how do we connect? By sharing what's going on in our lives. And if I only share the good, I'm not really sharing what's really going on because there are times I feel down, I feel depressed perhaps, or I feel anxious, whatever that might be. And whatever she's feeling, I know she can share that with me. So active listening, being there to be able to listen to what she's saying, and her there to be able to listen to what I'm saying are really essential parts of the relationship. So sharing the good and the bad, I like to think of the song, Getting to Know You.
Getting to know a little about
Getting
you.
to know you. This isn't a variety show, right?
It can be,
Getting
whatever
to
you
know
like.
you,
It has been
No,
before.
I'll cut that out then. No, so it's not a variety show.
Speaking of variety show, I did want to talk to you about the relationship dance. That's a good segue in there.
Say that again.
About the relationship dance. Did you
The
have any-
relationship dance. Well, the relationship dance is again about we're up and we're down. Nobody stays the same, okay? And so there are times when she feels hurt, or I feel hurt, or I feel terrific, and she feels terrific, and so we share those parts of ourselves. There is never, I think this is true. There is never a day where there's not some time where we share our lives together, what's going on in our lives and how we're feeling about ourselves and about each other. And a part of that, let me add about one of the other elements that's in the book. That's about acknowledgments. John Gottman talks about a 5-to-1 ratio, that you have to have a positive 5-to-1 ratio in the sense of if I'm saying 5 negative things to you and only 1, guess what?
All you hear are the negativity.
Right.
You don't hear anything positive.
Right. And even if I say 5-to-1, you probably still hear the negativity, but there's still a possibility that you realize I still love you if I'm doing at least a 5-to-1 relationship. So that becomes really important. That's the relationship dance, that we're sharing on a regular basis what's going on in our life. May I touch you for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to touch you on the shoulder. So I'm going past Dolores, and I might just put my hand on her shoulder like that as I walk by her. So that's a connection.
Oh, it's a connection.
It's a connection.
Yes, I know you mentioned that in the book.
Right.
That, it's a touch that I still love you. But how do couples, when you first meet each other and you have, the euphoria of being in a relationship, 2 to 3 years, and then, people have been together 20, 30, 40 years. How do you still keep that love, that still feeling of being loved, but are you in love?
Well,
that intimacy of being in love.
Well, love changes. I can now speak as an expert since I'm not 25 or 30 or 32 anymore. Love changes as we get older. And so the idea of developing a friendship when we get together, it's more hormones and eye contact and all that sort of, how good do you look, how good are you in bed, and all those kinds of sexual kinds of things. And as we get older, that part diminishes, and what has to take its place is the ability to be a friend with each other, to respect each other, to be thoughtful about each other, to be able to listen to each other, to spend positive time together, and to have friends. To have friends, individual friends. Dolores has her friends. I have. So relationships change. One of the big mistakes younger couples make, and in fact, the workshop I'm doing on Saturday, I have an exercise I'm going to do about that, where couples first talk to each other, then they stand up, and so you see the power arrangement, then they're farther apart, and it's important to be able to understand the changes a partner is going through, both physiologically and emotionally, and be able to accept that. Acceptance is a huge part of it, to be accept where my partner is, and not, as you went back to, as you were saying before, not expecting Dolores to be able to like what I like, or she has to like what she likes, that we're both individual people going on this journey together, but we are individuals. I'm responsible for my life, she's responsible for her life, and we're both responsible for what happens in the relationship between us. So as we get older, we have to realize that relationships go through changes, and so being able to ride out and go through those changes becomes important. That I think is part of the dance.
And we also touched on the book too. People are so afraid of change that you have to embrace change. You know, we become stagnant in our lives, and you want everything to be exactly where it is, exactly how it is. And how do you initiate change? I mean, especially to tell somebody, you know, I don't like the way this is going, or, you know, you go to your whatever, you know, you go to your health club or whatever, and I don't do this, or you know, the husband saying, well, you spend all day Saturday getting your nails done and your hair done, and then you go shopping, and then you have lunch with your daughter, and, you know, I said, well, you're welcome to come or whatever, and he's, no, I don't, no, that's not what I want to do. I have my own life, you know.
Well, that's called acceptance.
That's right. So that would be acceptance.
You have to be accepting of what a partner is doing, and again, how do we be together and separate at the same time? And how are we together even though we're separate? Right. So we share that. So I don't expect Dolores to have to do everything I want to do. We had a situation a couple weeks. I like to go swing dancing more than she does. Okay? And I like to go because I could dance with a bunch of women and I can do the same steps, but it feels different, not to make out.
No,
just the fun.
I understand this
right?
is right.
But to have the joy of the excitement of it all, and I can do the same steps, and it feels different because I've got a different energy because I have a different partner.
Right.
Well, there was about a month ago, Dolores was concerned about that, about why were you doing this? She didn't want me to go, and so the next day I talked to her about it, and actually that's the wrong word. I listened to her about it. I wanted to know, so tell me, what was your objection to that? What was your resistance to that? And she shared she had a rule that as a couple, you're not supposed to go out by yourself. And so we talked about what that rule meant and where that rule came from in her life. And when I did it the next time, I understood where she was, she understood where I was, and we weren't talking about my going out dancing because she knew that it wasn't, she was willing to accept the fact that I was going to do that. And of course we do it together also. We also go out swing dancing together. It's one of the things I love, and she loves doing it also.
Oh, well, maybe we'll see you on the future Dancing with the Stars.
I doubt that.
Yeah, there is an energy, though, in dancing that, you know, can be, I guess it could make a partner feel a little intimidated.
Well,
you know, a little jealous or...
intimidation is not one of the good parts of a relationship.
Right.
Being intimidated. I used to have a disease. I don't have it as much as I used to, but I used to have a very bad disease called comparavitis. And so I knew I knew how to get myself to feel down. One of my friends was Shel Silverstein, the famous writer, and I also knew the man who did the book about Chicken Soup for the Soul. So if I would go into Barnes and Noble and I would see Chicken Soup for the Soul, it's like, look what he's doing and what I haven't done. So fortunately, being older, I've begun to accept who I am and who I'm going to be and who I'm not going to be. And therefore, I don't have that disease, except once in a while it still pops up.
Okay, going back to another part of your book, you did the 7 principles of making a marriage work.
That comes from John Gottman.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So let me go.
Do you want to share that with us?
Well, I'm going to go through some of the things here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of the things that are important are certainly appreciation. We talked about that. Okay, and I talk about archaeology because Freud was an archaeologist. So getting to know ourselves, getting to know our deep shadows. I belong to a men's group, the New Warriors. I belonged to that for over 30-some years. And a lot of our work is getting to know what our triggers are from our past. How come I got angry about that? Well, I got angry about that because I saw my mother do this to me, or my dad did that with her, whatever that might be. So knowing our own archaeology. I've got in here about intentions. What are your intentions in the relationship? What do you want? And rituals. Rituals are, what do we do together? So one of our rituals are, can I have your hand? Is that Dolores and I almost always are holding hands. So you moaned and you're not even my girlfriend.
I have to say Dolores is in the studio. She's very lovely. She's a wonderful artist.
It's her cover on the book, by the way.
Yes,
I better say that so I can go home with her.
Yes, you can.
All right, so we hold hands a lot, and we get comment, oh, what a cute couple, because we're holding hands. Before we go to bed, when we're in bed, we hold hands together. That's one of our rituals. If I see a sunset, if she sees a sunset, we call the other person over to take a look at it. So we're sharing those beautiful moments together. That's friendship, right? That's wanting to share with my partner, with Dolores, what's important to me. That's one of the principles. I don't have in the book about conflict resolution because I think it's more important that there are fewer conflicts. There are fewer conflicts if the relationship is strong.
I think that is so wise.
And if you have this connectedness on a regular basis that's positive, then the conflicts don't seem so big. They get solved because we delve into what the conflict is really about, and we laugh about it sometimes. I mentioned in the book about having humor. If we don't laugh at ourselves, what are we going to do? We got to laugh, and we also have to have, I believe, humility. And humility for me is the idea I'm humble enough. I put my hand on here, my goodness. I'm humble enough to say I'm sorry, so I don't have to be right. And I hope I'm compassionate enough to say I forgive you for what you did or for what you didn't do. So there aren't just 3 words, I love you. It's I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry. Those are an essential part of any relationship.
Oh, I think so. Do you think both parties should say that in a relationship, or do you think one should?
I think both have to say it.
I think so too, because otherwise there is a feeling of, you hurt me, and, in any kind of a conflict, words can be said, or, emotions or things can be said that are, what if something is said that's totally unforgivable in a fight?
I've never heard Dolores say anything to me that's unforgivable, and I don't believe I've ever said anything to her is unforgivable because of the
But you may just something in the heat of the argument, and if you say,
Well, then I'm sorry about that I said that.
Right.
In fact, sometimes it's really important in listening skills is to be able to bring up, well, I heard you were disturbed by that. So how would you have liked me to say that? How could I have said it that you could have heard it? So that it's not my saying, it's not what I say, it's what you hear.
That is so true. That's what I was looking for you to say, because you know, no one knows it too much that you are a facilitator,
Right.
and you do groups, and you do, and you know, encounter of partners together, and to enhance, obviously, strengthen the relationship.
Right.
Right, because that's something that you do, and you're very, very good at what you do.
Well,
and
thank
this
you very
book is
much.
really, of the years that you've done that, this is, you know, the coming of the book too.
Right.
Right.
It's a culmination of a lot of things that I've read and a lot of things I've experienced, both in doing my own work and also working with the warriors and seeing
Yeah,
what...
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I went through it in 1987 when it really was new.
We are putting on more, for more information, they can contact you if you want to know where you are.
mkpchicago.org.
Okay.
MKP Chicago.
All right.
It's a wonderful thing. There's a powerful weekend,
Uh-huh.
which I think is an introduction to the work. And the most important thing to me is that after the weekend, the men have the opportunity to stay in a group together and to work on their issues, to be able to change their belief systems they had when they were young. I'm no good, I don't deserve this, and to learn that what their parents did is what their parents did because of the fact that that's what the parents had gone through probably. And to be able to change their belief system and come out on a new way of interacting with other people. So every week we do stretches with family or with finances or fun or friends or physical stretches. Some when I say I don't mean this, I mean some stretch of going to the gym. So they have to do stretches so that the work that they do in the group they can take out, because the group isn't where the work is. The group is where it's the practice field. The work is outside when I have to talk to you, when I have to talk to Dolores, have to
Right.
talk
You have
to
to
a
talk
boss.
right, absolutely.
Right. When someone hasn't done the work.
Interaction, yes.
Right, the interaction with somebody, exactly. So that's become an important part of my life, and I've learned a lot from it, and it gives my life a sense of meaning. And when I come home, I share what I've learned with Dolores about it. Again, back to that concept that I share with I don't talk about what the men did, because it's confidential, but what I got out of it and what was important to me in that. So it's another way of our sharing.
It is another way, and it's what you're doing is good work. I mean, it's really beneficial for the relationships, no matter if you have a partner, like you're saying, in a business sense. It could be somebody that you own a business with. It could be your lifelong partner. You know, there are always conflicts in a relationship, how to handle it.
Right.
Right. It's not just always a romantic relationship that we are talking about.
No, we don't always deal with
Right,
romantic
because
relationships.
a lot of times people have problems with their children.
Right.
So that's also encountered too, how to, act with that.
Absolutely.
As you get older, which I'm finding too, everything starts to shift. The mother, the father, do you want to be a friend to your son? Do you want to be a friend to your daughter? The parenting role it's stopped. They no longer need you as a parent.
Well, they need you in a different way.
Right,
They still
but you
need you
can't
for
really be judgmental, and you can't put any, curfews on them.
Right. They've got their own lives.
Right.
So I think that's part of the idea of parenting is raising a child that is independent and wants you for love and support and caring, but not to tell you what to do. Maybe to offer advice, but certainly not to give ultimatums. One of the things I think that's really essential is not giving ultimatums. One of the rules Dolores and I have.
And that's in any relationship. Don't give an ultimatum.
Right. We do requests.
Requests.
So
You take requests.
Dolores says to me, I requested you would do this, and so if I do it, I'm not doing it out of fear, out of anxiety, or I'm feeling compelled to do it. I'm doing it because I'm choosing to do it because I care about her and I want to do it, or I might say not now. I'll be glad to do that later on.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for appearing on my program, Erwin Aloff. The book is, once again, A Guidebook to Light Your Path to Intimacy. And, you know, this is a great book. And for more information, please contact you with your email, you know, for the Weekend Warriors and for other